Chelsea under Xabi Alonso is far scarier than anyone realizes. Just take a look at this relentless squad. Mike Penders, Joel Hotto, Reece James, Marco Palestra, Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Cole Palmer, Giovanni Quenda, and Estevao Willian, Pedro Neto, Nicholas Jackson, and Danny Welbeck. That lineup alone is ridiculous, but somehow two players are now beginning to stand way above the rest. João Pedro and Morgan Rogers. And if their recent performances are any indication, the Premier League has got a very serious problem on its hands. To Chelsea fans and football fans out there, I want to hear exactly why I am wrong when I make this claim. I truly believe that this season in the Premier League, João Pedro is going to score far more open play goals than any other striker in the division. And yes, that includes Erling Haaland. Because João Pedro has quickly become one of the hottest, most dangerous strikers in Europe. Since the beginning of 2026, the brilliant Brazilian has racked up 12 goals and 5 assists, taking his debut Chelsea campaign to 20 goals and 9 assists. But João Pedro's brilliance cannot be explained by cold numbers alone. Football is not just cold statistics on a page. It is also about what a player can actually create on the pitch. And João Pedro can actually create almost anything. Against Napoli in the Champions League, he produced a brilliant flick, a body swerve, and then unleashed a left-footed rocket from way outside the penalty box, one of 2 match-winning goals at the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona. Then against Aston Villa, he ruthlessly attacked the space behind the defense, before delicately lifting the ball over Emiliano Martinez, completing a magnificent, unforgettable hat-trick at Villa Park. And even during Chelsea's utterly disastrous 3-1 defeat against Nottingham Forest, João Pedro produced something completely ridiculous in the 92nd minute. A thunderous bicycle kick that richly rewarded those loyal supporters who stayed until the very end. That is exactly what makes him so incredibly difficult to defend. João Pedro can drop deep between the lines or aggressively exploit the space behind your defense. He can wait calmly for the cutback or rise to attack a cross in the air. If you give him a tight space, he will easily escape with sheer technique. Give him open grass, and he will explode right past you. And when the chance arrives, he can finish with either brutal power or absolute delicacy. Chelsea desperately and urgently needed that level of versatility. I honestly believe that for Chelsea right now, João Pedro is the complete footballer. I think he is easily the best overall player that we have in this squad. Every single part of his game has evolved, developed, and immensely improved. Cole Palmer finished with 11 goals, 5 of them being clinical penalties. Enzo Fernandez produced 15 goals, while Pedro Neto chipped in with 10. Those are respectable numbers, but João Pedro's 20 goals became fundamental to an attack that was not exactly overflowing with elite goal scorers. And do not forget something even bigger than that. If Chelsea are crowned world champions today, João Pedro's crucial goals at the Club World Cup played a truly massive role in making that happen. That is exactly why he finished the season as Chelsea's Player of the Year, which makes Carlo Ancelotti's shocking decision to completely omit him from Brazil's World Cup squad seem even more incredible. One of the most dangerous forwards in the Premier League had to watch from home as Brazil were eventually knocked out and eliminated by Norway. And João Pedro has not slowed down at all. In preseason under Xabi Alonso, he has already scored 7 goals, which includes a brilliant hat-trick against Western Sydney Wanderers, a clinical brace against AC Milan, and yet another brace against Real Sociedad. The Brazilian is absolutely on fire. But the Chelsea board were still not completely satisfied, because then they went out and signed Morgan Rogers. And without being afraid to say it, Rogers has the distinct potential to become one of the greatest signings Chelsea have ever made. They paid £116 million, making him the most expensive British footballer in history. But what exactly are Chelsea getting in return for all of that staggering money? And again, if you look closely at the way Arsenal have managed their squad with new signings coming in, they have not played every single game. And I strongly believe Rodgers will demand to play in every single game. That is the one big question I keep thinking about. What happened when he spoke to Alonso? While away in his room with the England squad, he was clearly on a Zoom call with Alonso and Chelsea. He is almost an entire attacking tactical system packaged inside one player. Rodgers is highly versatile, operating from the left wing as a number 10, from the right, or even as a false 9. That incredible flexibility became absolutely fundamental during his successful 2.5 years at Aston Villa. Although Unai Emery particularly loved using him in central areas or operating deep inside the left half space, those two specific positions accounted for almost three-quarters of his total Premier League minutes across his final 2 seasons playing at Aston Villa. And most importantly, Rodgers delivers when matches become truly difficult, like his brilliant brace against Manchester City. The ball is fed towards Rodgers, and Morgan Rodgers still drives past his man. Then came another brace against Manchester United, showing his ice-cold composure, followed by a clinical hat-trick against Celtic. Rodgers turns it in. That was a truly massive performance against PSG. Yori Tielemans, can he put it back toward the far post? Morgan Rodgers is not just a footballer collecting meaningless statistics. Rodgers actively wins and changes the biggest matches. When he first arrived at Aston Villa in February 2024, he gave them a lethal new weapon up front. It was just the spark they needed to secure that fourth-place finish and bring Champions League football back after more than 40 long years. And then he just kept evolving. Just last season, Rodgers led the charge for Villa by scoring 10 crucial Premier League goals, helping them secure fourth place yet again with 65 points, guaranteeing European football for a third straight year. And yet, his most historic moment was still waiting to happen. Morgan Rodgers etched his name forever into Aston Villa folklore when they won the 2025-26 UEFA Europa League, finally ending their agonizingly long wait for a major European trophy, and Rodgers was formally crowned as the player of the tournament after racking up 3 goals and 5 assists along the way. When the silverware was actually on the line, he rose to the occasion once more. He put on an absolute masterclass with a goal and an assist in the final against Freiburg. That is the superstar Chelsea just signed. He is a player who did not simply make Aston Villa look better. He fundamentally changed the entire trajectory of the club, and now Chelsea are preparing to pair him right alongside João Pedro. Honestly, that is a terrifying prospect. One of them gives Xabi Alonso dynamic movement, raw improvisation, deadly finishing, and that effortless Brazilian creativity right inside the 18-yard box. The other brings sheer power, elite ball carrying, incredible tactical flexibility, and the rare ability to completely shred defensive setups from pretty much anywhere across the final third of the pitch. In incredibly quick fashion, Rodgers has already started making his presence felt, scoring on his Chelsea debut. Just think about the sheer scale of this. João Pedro is fresh off the absolute best season of his career and has already bagged 7 goals in preseason alone. At the same time, Morgan Rodgers arrives at Chelsea after serving as Aston Villa's primary catalyst, lifting the Europa League trophy and taking home the Player of the Tournament award. And now, Xabi Alonso actually gets to unleash both of them on the pitch together. So yes, it is safe to say the Premier League has a massive João Pedro and Morgan Rodgers problem. If you do not believe it, just take a close look at this. To truly grasp why this partnership has the potential to be so devastating, we have to travel back to where the journey at for both of them. First, let us look at how João Pedro evolved into such an elite talent. To understand that, we have to go all the way back to Brazil. His footballing journey started deep inside the Fluminense Academy, where his sheer quality fast-tracked him straight into the senior squad at only 17 years old. And he certainly did not waste any time making an impact. In just 37 senior appearances, João Pedro scored 10 times, quickly catching the eye of major clubs right across Europe. Ultimately, Watford won the highly competitive race for his signature. João Pedro went on to make over 100 appearances for the club, battling through 1.5 Premier League seasons and 2 intense championship campaigns. But it was during the 2022-23 season that English football truly began to realize just how special he could be. Even while playing for a deeply struggling Watford team, he still managed to contribute to 15 goals, earning himself a spot in multiple pundits' championship teams of the season. Brighton had seen more than enough, and that was where João Pedro truly became a proper Premier League threat. Over 2 seasons with the Seagulls, he contributed to 40 goals in only 70 matches. But those raw statistics only tell a fraction of the story. What made him so incredibly dangerous was the sheer variety of ways he could tear a defense apart. In a clash against Tottenham, he put on one of his most complete performances in the Premier League. First, some sheer individual magic inside the box set up Jack Hinchelwood for the opening goal. Later, João Pedro stepped up to slot home two penalties with absolute ice in his veins. But against Sheffield United, he took things even further. He claimed his very first Brighton hat trick, dispatching two penalties with flawless precision before capping it off with a sensational strike from well outside the box. But the key was that João Pedro was not just racking up stats, he was actively deciding football matches. When they played Manchester City, Brighton were trailing 1-0 when he was introduced in the 66th minute. In less than 20 minutes, he pounced on a loose ball inside the 6-yard box to equalize, before setting up Matt O'Reilly to seal a dramatic comeback win. That extraordinary ability translated perfectly into Europe, too, especially during their massive clash against Marseille, with the match locked tight, and Brighton, desperately fighting for first place in their Europa League group. João Pedro conjured up an absolute rocket of a finish into the top corner in the 88th minute, securing top spot in Group B and direct qualification to the round of 16. And in a massive game against Manchester United, he put on display another trait that would define his game, delivering in the ultimate clutch moments. After causing problems all game long with his exceptional link-up play, João Pedro popped up entirely unmarked at the back post in the 95th minute, guiding his header home to secure a massive 3 points. This is precisely why his complete transformation at Chelsea has been so incredibly impressive. When he first arrived, he was not even recognized as a traditional number 9. Today, it is almost impossible to picture him playing anywhere else on the pitch. He has fully taken on every single responsibility that modern strikers face. He relentlessly presses opposition center backs and relishes physical battles with towering defenders. He shields the ball brilliantly with his back to goal, wins clever fouls to give his defense a breather, and constantly drops deep to link up play like an elite attacking playmaker. And then, seconds later, he is suddenly bursting into the box like a natural-born poacher. João Pedro is not just leading the line for Chelsea, he has managed to evolve into almost every single profile of forward at the exact same time. Because of this, it is no surprise that a club like Barcelona is sniffing around, and it explains why Chelsea reportedly view him as completely untouchable. It took Blueco 3 long years to finally identify and recruit a genuinely world-class striker. But trying to recruit another elite forward just 12 months later makes absolutely no sense, especially since João Pedro has finally shattered the striker curse that had plagued Stamford Bridge for almost a decade. Since Diego Costa scored 22 goals back then, while leading Chelsea to that memorable Premier League title, not a single Chelsea center forward had managed to hit 20 goals in a single season. Just think about the massive names they tried: Alvaro Morata, Olivier Giroud, Gonzalo Higuain, Tammy Abraham, Timo Werner, Romelu Lukaku, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Kai Havertz, and Nicholas Jackson. Different strikers, different managers, different systems, same old problem. Elite players like Eden Hazard and Cole Palmer could carry Chelsea's goal scoring from deeper or wider positions, but Stamford Bridge was still desperately waiting for a truly dominant number 9. 9 long years later, João Pedro finally arrived, and the first major warning sign came almost immediately during the Club World Cup. It was truly incredible how quickly his Chelsea teammates began to trust him. Once they realized they could fire rapid passes into him under intense pressure, knowing he would shield the ball, make the correct decision, and link the attack, João Pedro became their ultimate reference point. Then came the goals. Facing Fluminense at MetLife Stadium, he went against the very club that had developed him and completely destroyed them. João Pedro scored twice in the 18th and 56th minutes, sending Chelsea into the final against PSG. Then on the biggest stage, he delivered once again. While Cole Palmer scored twice, João Pedro delivered the final blow right before halftime, finishing brilliantly to help Chelsea become world champions. That entire tournament was no isolated explosion. It was a clear warning of what was coming next, because the clinical Brazilian remained one of Chelsea's most reliable performers throughout the entire season. First under Maresca and then Rosenior, before putting together a truly devastating run during the second half of the campaign. He put together 7 straight matches with a crucial goal contribution. Brentford completely unmoved, and João Pedro against Crystal Palace, with their link play working beautifully. João Pedro makes it 2, a clinical brace against Napoli as he spins away. Pedro is doing brilliantly here. A goal and an assist against West Ham, yes, João Pedro. Pedro playing it across to him, picking up 2 assists against Wolves, goal. And that is the opening goal. Then going the other way, a goal against Burnley via Fernandez. Pedro Neto serves it up, and then the masterpiece. A brilliant hat-trick and an assist against Aston Villa, before later adding that spectacular bicycle kick against Nottingham Forest. Yet perhaps the biggest reason Chelsea supporters have truly connected with João Pedro is not just the goals. It is his character. There is absolutely no constant complaining at teammates, and no visible petulance when matches go badly. No disappearing acts when Chelsea are struggling on the pitch. He plays with massive confidence, works relentlessly, and carries himself like someone ready to accept responsibility. And one moment against Nottingham Forest showed what he represents. Following the final whistle, most Chelsea players approached the Matthew Harding stand from a safe distance, quietly applauding and apologizing to the home supporters after another terrible result. João Pedro did something different. He walked much closer. The home supporters welcomed him warmly, and then he spotted a young fan and handed over the very shirt in which he had scored that incredible bicycle kick. That is why his connection with Stamford Bridge feels so different. Throughout long stretches of last season, João Pedro was not simply Chelsea's best striker. He was their single best reason to watch, and sometimes, during their darkest and most painful moments, he felt like their only one. Now, we must talk about what could be Chelsea's absolute best signing in years, Morgan Rogers. Morgan Rogers transformed from being a quiet championship signing into Aston Villa's primary attacking engine, and one of their most influential dressing room leaders, playing a highly decisive role in ending the club's 41-year wait to return to the Champions League. With his explosive physical power and those deadly turns between the lines, and a natural ability to drive right through defensive structures, Rogers produced 40 goals and assists in 85 Premier League appearances. When you add the PFA Young Player of the Year award and his breakthrough with the England national team, the message became completely obvious. Rogers was not simply another exciting prospect enjoying a good spell. He had become an established performer at the highest level of world football. Chelsea highly prize his tactical versatility. Rogers can play comfortably on the left flank as a number 10, on the right wing, or even as a false 9. Aston Villa highly valued that exact same tactical quality, although manager Unai Emery quickly discovered where he was most dangerous, centrally or inside the left half space, positions which ultimately accounted for almost 3/4 of his Premier League minutes across his final 2 full seasons. Even when starting out on the left flank, those overlapping runs from Lucas Digne allowed Rogers to drift inside, receive the ball between the lances, and immediately launch an attack. Look at the match against Brentford in December 2024. He picked up possession deep inside Villa's half, then drove through the left channel, combined brilliantly with Ollie Watkins, and curled an unstoppable finish right into the far corner. That is precisely why he would fit into this Chelsea side perfectly. Rogers loves working in that left pocket, while Cole Palmer absolutely dominates the right. Their touch maps were almost mirror images last season, and they already know each other well from their time at the Manchester City Academy. But Rogers is not just a ball carrier. He knows how to find the back of the net. He registered an impressive 14 goals across all competitions in each of his 2 full seasons playing for Aston Villa, consistently outperforming his expected goals tally in both of those grueling Premier League campaigns. We are talking 8 goals from 6.6 expected goals in 2024-25 and 10 from 6.8 the following year. A major reason is his lethal long-range shooting. In fact, only 4 players in the entire Premier League attempted more than his 23 shots from outside the 18-yard box last season. Rogers has this incredible ability to bend finishes towards the far corner or absolutely leather them with his laces, a terrifying trait that teams like Tottenham and Manchester United struggled to deal with. He is constantly hunting for space, trying to get Rogers into the danger area. Against West Ham, we saw a brilliant ball delivered right towards Morgan Rogers as he was honing in on the target. Then against Nottingham Forest, he managed to turn sharply into the final third for Villa, while Ollie Watkins was already lining up his run. Against Newcastle, it was more of the same, with players like Yori Telemans and Emi Buendia doing neat work before Buendia lined up a shot, and even Liverpool have experienced it. The play shifts back towards Rodgers, who finds some space and immediately goes for the far corner. This unique ability gives Xabi Alonso a massive weapon when facing defensive low blocks. Leave Rodgers with any space outside the 18-yard box, and he will shoot. But if you step out to press him, space immediately opens up somewhere else. Closer to goal, he has the quality to finish with either foot and intelligently exploit open space. In the match against PSG in April 2025, he initially moved centrally before peeling out towards the back post as the ball switched sides, timing his run beautifully to score. His movement is also brilliant at creating key assists. We saw this clearly against Bologna, where his incredibly sharp, quick touches inside the penalty area allowed him to set up a teammate rather than taking the shot himself. The truly frightening thing is that Rodgers still has massive room for improvement. Despite his obvious finishing quality, he only averaged 2.3 shots per 90 minutes, from an average distance of 19.4 yards out. If Xabi Alonso can get him attacking the opposition penalty box on a much more regular basis, then his attacking numbers are bound to explode, especially because Rodgers is a highly creative playmaker as well. Just look at England's massive World Cup semi-final against Argentina, where he delivered a sensational cross for Anthony Gordon's opening goal. Rodgers is fully capable of delivering dangerous crosses and sharp cutbacks with either foot from either flank, a versatility that helped him rack up 24 assists over his 2 full seasons with Aston Villa. But his style of playmaking is never about forcing impossible, highlight reel passes. Instead, it is all about making the absolute right decision at the exact right split second. During Aston Villa's commanding 4-0 victory in the second leg of the Europa League semi-final against Nottingham Forest, Rodgers chose to ignore the obvious pass to Ollie Watkins and instead picked out John McGinn, who was arriving in a far better position to put it away. In another brilliant sequence against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, he picked up the ball between the lines and threaded a wonderfully precise pass through a tiny defensive gap for Watkins. Then we have to talk about his imposing physical profile. Standing at nearly 6 feet 2 inches, or 187 centimeters, Rodgers brings a real presence to Chelsea that they have often lacked. We are talking pure size, strength, and explosive athleticism. He can shield the ball under pressure, compete fiercely in physical duels, press aggressively, and carry possession over vast distances on the pitch. In the match against Sunderland, Rodgers was actually positioned well behind the main attacking wave when John McGinn initially won back possession. But he sprinted almost the entire length of the pitch, overtook Ollie Watkins, latched onto his pass, controlled it beautifully with his right foot, and then calmly slotted it home with his left. The craziest part is that he can repeat these high-intensity runs because his overall durability is just exceptional. Out of Aston Villa's 76 Premier League matches during his final 2 campaigns there, Rodgers started 74. An incredibly valuable trait for a Chelsea squad that has been plagued by injury-prone players lately. Yet, perhaps his single greatest attribute is something much simpler. Rodgers always seems to step up exactly when the team needs him most. Think about it. A crucial assist in the World Cup semi-final against Argentina. When Villa were fighting tooth and nail to secure Champions League football, he delivered massive performances, including a vital goal against Chelsea and an absolute masterclass to dismantle Arsenal. In the Champions League clash against PSG, he not only found the back of the net but stood up as a leader across both legs of the tie. And then came what was undoubtedly Aston Villa's biggest fixture in decades, the high-stakes Europa League final showdown against German side Freiburg. Rodgers stepped up to set up a brilliant assist for Yori Telemans, before finding the back of the net himself to give Villa some much-needed breathing room. A goal and an assist in a major European final, when Aston Villa desperately needed someone to take real responsibility on the big stage, Rodgers never hid from the moment. Now just try and put all of those pieces together. Picture Rodgers attacking the left half space, Cole Palmer pulling strings from the right, and João Pedro leading the line ahead of them. João Pedro has taken his game to another level, improving virtually everything. From his movement and clinical finishing to his combination play, aerial threat, and overall chemistry with his teammates. He has the tactical intelligence to drop deep between the lines to link up with both Rodgers and Palmer, before immediately making a run to attack the penalty box. With Palmer manipulating the play on one side of the pitch, while Rodgers can demolish opponents from out wide, João Pedro connects the play through the center. They score, create, and switch positions completely at will. More importantly, João Pedro and Morgan Rodgers already display that cold-blooded killer instinct that every elite forward desperately needs. When the pressure reaches a boiling point, they never shrink. That is exactly why this devastating duo has everything it takes to become the most feared partnership in the Premier League.